Hello and welcome to MidnightSilverCrafters.com. My name's Steve and I'll be your host. Today in this video, we're going to learn how to properly anneal metal.
This thing is hot. Woo, add some heat. Alright, all I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in here. Now you got to go careful with this stuff. You're dealing with something that's this hot. You got to be careful because it's hot. I mean, it's really hot. Alright, we're sitting out here in the shop, sitting here at my bench, and today, what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about annealing metal. Alright, now, annealing metal is something that's very important. You have to really understand annealing. If you're going to make jewelry, you really need to know how to properly anneal some metal. So what I'm going to do today, I got some silver here. Alright, this is an old pendant I made that years ago I made this. Just found it today in a box of junk. But I got an old pendant here, and I got a tree cut off tree stump that I made a casting last night, and I got my stump here. But what I'm going to do, these are both sterling. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these 2 bits of sterling silver here, and I'm going to take this potato, all right, and I'm going to use this as a crucible, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to pour me an ingot in my ingot mold. And then once I get an ingot, I'm going to show you the proper way to anneal metal. Alright, now, just while I got this sitting here, if you're going to melt down a small amount of silver, alright, now this is probably about, I don't know, this is maybe a couple ounces, of silver right here. But anytime you're going to melt down a small amount of silver, if it's an ounce and a half or an ounce or less than 2 ounces, the best thing to do is get you a potato. This was a potato that was bad. It was real soft and no good. Just they left some potatoes in there, but all you do is you get you a potato and you carve that out with a spoon, alright, and then you make you a little tiny, cut you a little pour spout right here on the end. And now this is the best crucible, the best way to melt down an ounce or 2 of silver is this. Now if I'm doing a lot of cast, if I'm going to cast up just a small mold, that's like under 2 ounces of silver, I always do it this way. We use a potato. Now if I'm going to do casting and I got a lot of silver, I normally put about 7 ounces of silver in this crucible. Alright, and that way when I pour molds, I can usually pour about 3 or 4 molds with one crucible. I'll just pour one mold, set it back down in my furnace, and then pour me another one. But these little crucibles are great. I don't want to get off track, but we're going to make an ingot, and I'm going to talk about annealing metal. Now, when you work with silver, okay, silver has to be annealed because silver gets work hardened, okay? Now, if you're working with pewter, you do not have to anneal it at all. Here's a ring right here I've been working on. This is a model I'm building right here. This is a model. I build all my models out of pewter. Okay, now pewter is really a good metal. If you don't know how to work with it, watch some of my videos and learn how to work with pewter. But when you're working with pewter, you do not have to anneal it at all, because pewter does not work harden at all, which makes it nice, okay, for working with it. But with silver, today we're talking about silver. We're going to make a silver ingot. But now, when you go and you go to one of these jewelry companies and you look on their website, and you'll see when they say they got some metal there and they say it's dead soft. All right, now, dead soft metal, silver, we're talking silver now. What that means is, if you got a piece of wire or a piece of sheet, if it's dead soft, okay, that means it was just annealed to the proper temperature. That's what dead soft means. All right, now, if they roll that out on a rolling mill, all right, it gets work hardened, okay? And once you roll it down or roll it out, it's not dead soft anymore, okay? There's a different hardness. The more you roll it down and work harden it, okay, it gets work hardened, and it's not, it's harder and harder. But dead soft means that it was just properly annealed, and it was not work hardened in any way. Now, when you make jewelry, you want your metal annealed. When you work with it, you want your metal annealed at first, because annealed metal is very soft. It's easy to bend, okay? And when you roll out something on a rolling mill, like I'm going to make me an ingot here, and I'm going to roll out some metal. I'm making a ring here. This is a different ring, but here's my pattern now. This is my ring shank. All right, I'm going to make me an ingot. But now, when I make this ingot, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to anneal the ingot. Okay, I'm going to anneal it. Then I'm going to roll it down a little bit, and it's going to work harden it. And I'm going to roll it a little, then I'm going to anneal it. And every time you work with a rolling mill, when you roll metal out, you have to keep annealing the metal, because when it's annealed, it's soft and it'll roll out. But if you try to roll out a piece of silver or hammer out a piece of silver, you can use a hammer just as good as you can a rolling mill, pretty much. You can shape your metal with a hammer. If you don't have a rolling mill, you can use a hammer. But when you hammer it, it work hardens it. All right, and then you gotta anneal it. Then you hammer it some more or roll it some more. Then you anneal it in the same way with drawing wire on the draw plates. All right. When you draw wire through the draw plates, as you pull that wire through, it's work hardening the metal. So you have to stop, anneal your metal, and then pull it through the draw plates a couple times, and stop and anneal your metal. So when you're making jewelry, and if you're going to learn to work with ingots and learn metal work, annealing is absolutely critical to know. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone. We're gonna make an ingot, and then we're gonna learn how to properly anneal the metal. All right. All right. Now, before I go over here and we start melting this metal, this is what I'm going to be using. This is a torch that I use. Now, this is oxygen and propane. Okay, now to properly anneal metal, okay, or even to melt silver, okay, if you're going to melt silver, you're gonna have a heck of a time trying to melt silver with just a propane torch. It's almost impossible to melt silver with just propane. Or now a little torch like this, okay, now you can forget about this, okay, now this is not gonna melt any silver. I mean, you could melt a tiny drop maybe with this, maybe, if you're lucky. But now, if your metal is real thin, all right. Now if you got some real thin metal, like maybe this is less than I think this is I believe this is a 20 gauge metal right here. Okay, it's real thin. Now something this thin, you can maybe anneal it with this, but it's not near as good, okay, as using this. I mean, you might anneal something, maybe a 20 gauge or thinner, but if you're going to have thick metal, especially if you're going to have an ingot, you're not going to anneal it with this, okay? It's not enough heat, all right, and this is not really good for a whole. It's really not even really enough heat to solder silver. Not really. You can solder a tiny little bit, but not much at all. So you're really going to have to get, if you really want to do some metal work, okay, you got to get something that's going to be hot enough. A regular small propane torch is not really enough heat either. I mean, you can get by with it if your metal's real thin like this for annealing, but for making ingots, okay, and for annealing thick metal like annealing an ingot or something like that, you're going to have some heat. And this is what I use. Now I use this torch for soldering too. I know most people say, they would never use that to solder silver with, but this is what I use. And I've been using this torch my whole life, and I'm comfortable with it. I understand everything about it, and I'm good with it. And this is what I use. I don't really care for the little Smith torch. Now you can get a little Smith torch. And yes, you can change the tips and stuff, and you can use it. You can use like they have a little heating tip that you can put on the little Smith's torch. They call it a rosebud when you're talking this type of a torch, or I think they call it a rosebud on the other little Smith. But it's like a little rosebud tip. It's a heating tip, but those little heating tips suck up so much fuel that it's ridiculous. That's why I don't use those things. And oxygen is not, it's not super expensive if you have a big tank, like I do. I think I got 150 cubic feet, I believe, in my oxygen bottle. It's the big tall one. It's right behind this cabinet here. But you're going to need, something like this to anneal with. I'm just kind of giving you a little information on a different torch. Now I use this torch because I never change this tip at all. I use the same tip. I never change a tip, and I do everything with this torch. I solder. I do my silver work with this torch. I make my ingots with this torch. I do castings, 2 ounces or less of silver. I use this torch. I use this torch for everything I do. Okay, now, that's about it for the torch, okay? But this little torch right here ain't going to do you any good for annealing metal, all right? And a propane torch is not really going to do you that much good either. All right, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and let's make an ingot. All right, so we're going to go ahead now. If you're doing a small casting, this potato is absolutely the best thing that you can use. If you're casting 1 or 2 ounces of silver, which you can make quite a few pieces of jewelry with 2 ounces of silver. You can make, quite a few rings and put you a little tree if you're casting. But now that you ain't gonna melt silver, not really with a propane torch, alright, you're just not going to do it. I mean, you can melt maybe a little bit, but you ain't going to melt much. You really need some heat when it comes to melting silver. Now, if you don't want to make the investment on getting this set up, because it's probably about $450 or $500. What you do is you build that little mixing bowl furnace. You build that for $100. Alright, and then you're good to go. And you can cast something small or you can cast something big. You can go 10 or 12 ounces of silver in that little crucible if you want. Alright, I'm just showing you some different options, but if you don't have the money to invest in this, build that little furnace first. That's what I did. That's how I started out, was with that little mixing bowl furnace. Look at my videos, and you can build it. But it just uses your propane tank off of your barbecue grill. Alright, I made this ingot once, but I was not really too happy with how it came out. I mean, it's probably alright. I probably could have used it, but I'm gonna go ahead and make another one, because I want to see if I can get, you know, a little bit better of an ingot. It just had a couple spots on it that I didn't like, so I'm gonna melt me another one. But this will melt silver real quick. I mean, you know, the furnace is good. You know, I mean, it's your better option if you don't have the money to get a propane. You know, oxygen and propane setup like this. Build that little furnace, because it works great, and it barely uses any fuel. I designed it so that it doesn't use any fuel. But this is really melting just really easy here. It melts like butter almost with this. But you're not going to do this with a propane torch. You're not going to melt this much silver at all. All right. I think what happened to my last one that I made, I didn't put any flux in it. All right, now what I got, this is a carbon rod, okay? This is a little carbon stirring rod, and it's good. You can take this carbon rod. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit of borax. This is just plain old borax that you buy at Walmart. All right, I'm gonna put some borax in there. Now that borax really cleans that metal real good. All right, and that's the trick to getting a good ingot or a good casting. You want to put some borax on there and skim off the top layer. Okay. You want to skim off all the impurities in your silver. They're going to come to the top, all right? They're going to float right on the top. So you just take this and you skim across it. See, I'm getting the impurities out of there. That top layer is impurities. We don't want no impurities in our metal. See, look at all that. That's a lot of impurities, all right? I think I got this just about all right. See, there was some crap on that metal there that I didn't want. Getting that in my ingot. All right, about got it. Keep this nice and hot. Now you always keep the heat on it. Alright, you always keep the heat on it when you're pouring it. Alright. Get that melt down in there. Alright. We'll open this up and we'll see what we got. Alright, I'm going to just go ahead and roll this thing out. Alright, just roll her right on through there. but I'm gonna roll it just a couple times. All right. But now a lot of people, they don't know how to use a rolling mill. They get a rolling mill and they say, that's too much work. That's ridiculous to go through that amount of work to make a little piece of metal. Well, that's because they don't have their metal annealed. Alright, now, you've got to have your metal annealed. Like I said, when you start making your jewelry, you're making a bezel or a ring shank or whatever you're making, if you got work hardened metal, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to bend it. And the same thing is true for a rolling mill. If you're going to sit here and take work hardened metal and keep rolling it and cranking it down real hard, you're going to have a heck of a time and you're not going to get any progress at all with it. Okay, that's why annealing is the most important thing when it comes to metalworking. It's one of the most important. Now that's about good enough. See, now it's starting to roll down, but this is already work hardened. Now I'm going to take it over there and we're going to properly anneal this, and then we're going to roll it down some more. Alright, let's take it back and anneal it. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I brought it back over here. I just got this thing laying on a concrete block. Alright. It's just sitting there on a cement block. Alright. It's nothing special. So you don't need anything fancy, but you want to get a nice, good, hot, long blue flame about like that. Alright, and you're just gonna go and you're gonna go back and forth across your metal. Now, properly annealed metal is when you take the metal all the way up a little bit before it starts to melt. Alright, now the way that you know that you got your metal properly annealed is by the color change. Alright, so we're gonna heat this up. And we're going to come in here and we're going to just keep heating this until this thing is going to start glowing. Alright, now it's going to just become like a dull, kind of a dull cherry red. Alright, you want your metal. Alright, you want it a dull cherry red. Now see that? Alright, now, I'm not sure how well you can see the color change on this, but I always take it right as close as I can take it before it just collapses and starts to melt. That way I know that I got it annealed. Now see, look at the metal, it's starting to turn red. If you can see that. Now, when you're annealing, you got to be real careful. Now, when you got real thin metal, you got to be careful because you'll melt it. You don't want to melt it. You want to take it close to the melting point and stop. All right, but you see that's turned to nice. See, a nice red color. Now it'll be glowing. Now if you kind of turn your lights down a little bit, if you can do that in your shop, or wherever you're working, you can see that color change better with the lights down. But see, all right, now there it's glowing real good. See, it's not glowing real bright to where it's about to collapse and melt, but see, It's just a dull red. All right, dull. Now, see right there it is. See. All right, now I'm going to stop right there. All right. So you heat it, even heat. All right, until you get a dull cherry red color. All right, and then you stop. But the thinner you roll it out or hammer it out, the easier it's going to be to melt. But you got to keep annealing it, okay? And then right when before you start forming your metal, you have to have it annealed. You can't go over there and roll it and roll it and roll it, or pound it and pound it and pound it, and then try to work with it and make something out of it, because you're not going to be able to bend it. The metal's going to be so hard that it's not going to be able to shape for you. See? Now this metal right here, this is what they call dead soft right here. Now this is dead soft metal. Now you can let it cool a little bit, and then you can quench it. All right, I'm gonna quench it in some water here. You don't want to quench it too soon. All right, but now and I'm gonna tell you a little secret. If you're working with silver and you got a piece of metal that you just annealed it and it's real hot. All right, and now if you take it over on your anvil and you start pounding it, yes, it's easier to work the metal. If it's hotter, it's probably a little bit softer, but you got to be real careful, because if you take a piece of silver like this and you anneal it and you take it straight to your anvil and it's still glowing red, and you put it down and you start smacking that with your hammer, it can explode. Okay, it can be soft enough that it can explode, and it'll burn you. That hot metal will just go everywhere and burn you. So don't start pounding metal that's red hot, super hot. I mean, a little dull red is workable, but a little bit hotter than that. Then the reason I'm telling you that is because years ago I did that one time. I only did it once, and I learned my lesson. You don't start working hot metal with a hammer, okay? You don't do that. Not super hot. It can be hot. See, this is still hot, but I quenched it and everything. But all right, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up here on the annealing. Here's my ingot. This is what my ingot turned into. I got my metal here, all measured up and cut and getting ready to make this next ring I'm working on. This is going to be a real nice ring right here that I'm doing. But if you're new to the channel, and if this is your first time, stopping by my channel, what I do on this channel is I do silversmithing, jewelry making, and the main thing I do is gloss wax casting, and I do a lot of casting, and I make a lot of jewelry using the lost wax method. Here's a ring I'm about to make. This is a raw casting. I just casted a bunch of these last night. But this is a real cool ring. I'm gonna actually make a video on this ring right here. I think that's going to be the next video that I'm going to make, is going to be about this ring right here. It's like a native style ring. It's a real cool ring. It's like a dome top. This piece right here gets domed and it gets soldered on there. But it's like a bear claw. This is like a native style bear claw ring, and then there's a nice little turquoise stone that goes here with a nice little bezel on it. But I think this is going to be my next video. This is a wax pattern right here. I make these wax patterns, and I have these available on my website. This is going to be one of my patterns that I have available. But if you're new, you know, I do stone cutting. This is a real nice stone here that I just cut that yesterday. Boy, that's a beauty. This ring is gonna be a real nice ring with this. This is like an octagon shaped stone. So yeah, that's what this channel is all about, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. I think you'd learn a whole lot, you know, as a subscriber, and I would love to have you. But if you do decide that you want to subscribe to the channel, if you would do me one big favor, and just down in the comment section there, if you would just put me a little comment, leave me a little comment, and just put in there, I subscribed, that would be terrific. And that would really help me a lot. It'd help me grow the channel, because I want to keep making more videos. But yeah, all right, well, it's been fun. So I guess that's going to be a wrap up for this one. My name's Steve, and I'll talk to you in the next video.